today we got to play
Caral.
So this is a temple building game. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because board games are amazing. And that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. Now, Randy, can you tell us a little bit more about this game besides we're building temples?
Well, yes, this is the Kickstarter Deluxe version. The base version comes with cardboard that you stack to make the temples. This one is a little bit nicer. This is a 2022 release. It has a Board Game Geek rating currently of 7.0 and a Board Game Geek rank of 11,142. 2 to 4 player game. Average length is 60 to 120 minutes, which I think is about right. The age is 12 and up. I don't see it having to be that because especially if you play the base game.
Yeah, but when you start
adding on the expansions, it makes it a little more complex. This game is designed to ease you into the game. So there's a standard game, and then there's a bunch of add-ons that you can add on it, as you decide to do so. We went ahead and went full board on it, and I think we left two mini expansions out. The design is by Klaus-Jürgen Reed. Art is by Hendrik Nowak, and it's published by Funtails. It's got a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter price for this was €105, which is about roughly $111 in American. The retail MSRP is $69.99, and like I said, that will not have the plastic upgrades. It will not have a lot of the add-ons. It's just the base game. And then the miniature market has it up for pre-order right now for $48.99. It's the only place I saw it available.
All right, let's talk about quality of components. So, like Randy mentioned, that this is the deluxe version from the Kickstarter. And honestly, I'm so glad that you ended up getting the deluxe version because just the aesthetics of having these beautiful temples built is just really awesome to be able to see as you go throughout the game. And where I like building games, having that actual build function is very satisfying to me. So that's absolutely fantastic.
I'll say all the boards have linen finish, all the cardboard, except for the main. I don't think the main board doesn't. The cards, though, were really good quality. They gave sleeves along with it as part of it. But the cards themselves...
Which is needed because you shuffle quite a bit.
Have a really nice linen finish, and they're pretty good consistency. So even without the sleeves, they feel really good. I was impressed with the component quality. And then you have 3 miniatures that are included in the game. You've got the first player marker, which also has a little mini add-on expansion that you can use. And then this Anaconda. And then there's the Architect. And so those are the 3 miniatures that are part of the game. He's really the key to the game of all of them.
Is the timer, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of nice bits. The wood bits are not screen printed. They're just.
But they are shaped. They are very uniquely shaped too. Your big worker guy that travels with you is shaped differently than everybody else, on top of being a different color, which is really cool.
For each player color, it's a different custom mold.
Yes. So I thought that was actually pretty great. And then the workers are pretty unique. They're not your standard meeples. It looks like they have a hammer in their hands, as well as you got some llamas. So I think overall they did a really good job with the quality of components. I'm at a 9, maybe 9.5 for this type of quality for these components.
I'm probably going to give it an 8.5 just because the temples don't fit nicely in. The tops of them.
Just the top.
Yeah,
just
the tops of them are,
and
the bottoms are a bit curvy. They're not fully flat. But the top is really the problem. It didn't fit in nicely. So I've got the Leaning Tower of Pyramid over here.
Yeah, the base just didn't quite. It was a little bit too large. Yeah. And you always ended up it being like cockeyed. But it's still very pretty.
Oh, I agree. 8.5 is not bad.
All right, so the theme is obviously that you are going throughout the temple grounds, trying to build temples, and the architect is trying to keep you on task to make sure that you do it in an appropriate amount of time. Okay. And as the years go on, you still have to don't forget the gods, right? You still have to sacrifice for the gods. So as you go about that, you keep building temples until you build enough.
And the designer of the game actually traveled to Caral in Peru and was just enamored with the pyramids. And he wanted to create a game that was set in that theme, but didn't have any kind of like take that element to it, because he wanted to keep it where everybody it wasn't cooperative. It was still competitive, but there was this sense of working in harmony.
And there's a bit of wonder to it as well, because we didn't get to go to Peru, but we did get to go see the temples in Mexico.
Aztec temples.
Yeah, and they were
they were Mayan, weren't they?
Yeah, Mayan temples. And they were breathtaking. And I understand his love and awe for those sites. And so it's very exciting to see. Overall, I like the theme. The components really bring that theme to life quite significantly, and as well as the gameplay.
Yeah,
right? You are building the temples. There's no way around it. So I liked it.
The art is kind of cartoonish on the cards, but I really like the art as well. It's nice, and it's different on each card. Except for like the ones all the cards I believe are the same for each of the different suits, if you will, of those cards. But the bonus cards that you try to get, that's the add-on, those are all different art. And then the board art is pretty as well, and it's functional. It is a little the trail kind of blends in, and it is easy to get off kilter looking at it.
You kept going to different rings all the time. I'm like, where are you at?
I was like, I don't know why I got the two rings mixed up. I mean, they're a few inches apart, so you shouldn't be able to have to do that. But as the board starts getting built, it actually makes it a little easier to keep track.
So overall, what would you score it on theme?
I think it's an interesting theme, and it is definitely integrated into the gameplay. I'm probably going to give this an 8.
I'm probably going to get a little bit higher at 8.5, just because I really like the theme. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I understand a little bit is from the component quality, but still, it's just, it's a very good thing. And I love to build. That's the other piece of it. I'm such a builder. So this was definitely right up my alley. All right, so now let's go into the rulebook. So, Randy, what did you think of it?
So first of all, the rulebook is full size and matches the art from the box. It's real pretty. It's got on the cover kind of a little background about Peru and about the temples in Caral that were says here they were discovered and excavated in 2000. That's fairly recent that they found them. The book is set up it's 16 pages long. It's set up really well as far as explaining the rules quickly. Now, as I mentioned, this game has a very basic base game. The base game they have a table of contents for it. They got the setup, and then kind of the explanation of the rules takes you to page 8. After that, it kind of goes through the resource cards, the 2-player rules, and then it goes into all the expansions. So about half the book is the add-ons. I would not recommend playing this game for very long at the base game, unless you're a novice. This would be at the base scheme of this would be an entry-level game, I think. Once you add on the add-ons, it becomes more of a
fleshed out light
to medium game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and though that's absolutely great to have.
Yeah.
And it is breathtaking, so it definitely can get people to the table, just because it is that pretty.
Yeah.
And so I think it really does a good job with that niche.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the rules. There was a couple typos, nothing bad. I would say this is a pretty well done rule book. I'll probably go ahead. Oh, and there's a cheat sheet, but they only gave us one. It's kind of basically walks you through the steps and the scoring on the back. It's okay. We didn't really use it much. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8. I think it does a decent job. I didn't see anything glaring as far as a mistake, and there was no confusion whatsoever on the rules.
All right, so now let's move on to the actual gameplay. So the gameplay starts that all the architect and all of the wonderful head of the clans, which is you guys, all right, are going to be over here in turn order. Yeah. Okay, so now I have, if I'm first player, because
first player.
Yes, I've decided.
Right.
I have.
So the dies over there that you need.
Yes. Okay, so right now will pretend not to have any llamas. So I can currently only move 4. Now,
well, you have 1 llama because you have
yes,
one to start.
yes, at least 1. Okay. And so I can only move 4 spaces, okay?
Which is what you typically would have at the start of the game.
Correct. All right, so then I'm going to roll my die as first player. All right, I get to choose to move the architect 1 or 2. I'm only going to move him 1.
And the architect only goes to action spaces. Any pyramids, typically at the start of the game, there won't be any pyramids on the board except for a foundation that you get to place on in a place of your choice. There's locations for the foundations that are already on the board. You get to choose from in turn order where you're going to place your foundation, and you get your starting resources based upon what your turn order.
Also, now when you move, you do not count any unused spaces. So what that means is the action spaces count, and then if there are temples that have are being actively built or have been built, do they count the spaces? So for an example, I'm going to end up moving. So I'm going to go 1, that's an action space. 2 is this other action space. 3 is right here. Now, because it is a temple. Now, it is my temple that is currently being built. So I'm going to trigger that right now. I'm going to pay a stone. Okay. And because I landed there, I could get that for free. However, if I decide, you know what, I want to build a second level, I can end up spending some of the cards that I've collected over the course of the game. Now, you do start out with a couple of cards, so we'll pretend that I was super lucky and ended up with 2 brick in that first play. And that allows me to pay another brick to put on my temple here. Now, and so that is that thing. The other thing is, not only can you spend the 2 brick, but you can also spend 2 clay to do that with those cards that are in your hand. Now, Randy, why don't you take your turn now?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just move 1, and I'm going to take the action where there's a worker assignment. So this is the market. So with the market, I have the choice. I can assign a worker to the stone area where you generate production of stone when you choose to land on it. Right at the start of the game, you'll have 1 on each of the stone locations, but you can add workers there. So when you land there, you'll produce more stone. Now, you do have a limit of 4 that you can hold on your sled, so you don't want to get more because you'd be wasting it. But, you know, it gives you the flexibility to produce more when you land there. So I could choose to go there, or I can choose to assign a worker to a new foundation location to start a new pyramid. So I put them on the spaces to reserve it, but it doesn't actually start building until I choose to land on that space, just like Miranda just did. The third option is if you're playing with the add-on, you can add a worker to the development board, and the development board gives you basically an alternate way of scoring. Instead of just building pyramids, you can actually move up the track, and you'll get points and some perks along the way, and it will give you an ongoing benefit each step of the way. You can only have 1 active benefit, so if you move to the next level, you give up the one from before, but they get more powerful as you move up, which is nice. And there's a perk where whoever has the highest on the track gets this 4 victory points. And
that's the only reason why he won last game.
I won by 1 point because of that. Yes.
He felt really good. The other option that he did not mention is actually taking your worker at a completed temple and going to the top. Now, he could only go to the top when it's a 5-level temple. And we did not mention that. So there are 2 different temple sizes, a 5 and a 3. So basically, when you build that first layer, you have to decide which base you're putting in. That will determine how many levels
at the end of the game. The 5-level temples are worth 10 if you complete them. The 3 levels are only worth 5, but there's a limit of 7 temples before the game end triggers. So you want to get them in as quickly as possible, because it may be more beneficial to build 3 levels to rush the game. So it really depends on your strategy.
Yeah, I was able to complete 2 large ones and was like this shy of finishing my 3rd if someone hadn't rolled crappy on the architect.
That was your dad, not me.
But regardless, though, That is the thing. All right, so now we'll have Dad go. So Dad is actually, he's going to get some stone because he likes stone.
So, even though he's got 4 of them?
Well, for the game, you know what? I'll help him out.
He doesn't have any stone.
He doesn't have any stone. He needs stone.
So he's going to the stone location. So he has 2 workers there currently.
All right, so he's going to get 2 stone. And he's going to place them on his board. You don't steal them from other players. All right. You get them from the supply and you put them on there. Now he's got 2 stones. Again, you can only hold a max up to 4. All right. So, and then it would be my turn again. And then,
first you have to roll.
Oh, I do have to roll before I forget.
He's moving too. So he's going to skip the pyramids and he's going to go to the card location now. So anyone who's behind the architect, if you don't manage to move ahead of him, you don't get to take an action. You get your
or at the same space as him.
Yeah. So if you're on the same space, you can.
Right. So for example, I'm here, so I'm going to go here, and I can get 2 cards. Okay. So that's what I could do. All right, Randy.
So I'm going to go 1, 2 from your pyramid, 3. I could get to here with the cards, but I'm going to go ahead and move ahead to the alpaca. So here I can get an alpaca. If I had one over here, I'll pick it up. I will get to add this. Now I can add it to my board to make my sled move faster. So right now I've got 2 on there, so it will move 5. But I can add another alpaca to make it move 6 now.
Which is more relevant as the board gets a little fuller.
Especially, we had this area of heavy pyramids at the end of the trail, which really stunk because it's like Boardwalk and Park Place in Monopoly you're going through. So, when you got to there, you had to slow down a lot because you have to stop at each one of those stops unless you have enough movement to bypass them. Now, the nice thing is, in addition to your space movement, you can discard cards. For every card you discard, you can add 1 to your movement. So you don't necessarily get stuck, but the cards have a lot better uses, which we'll go into in a minute. So that's one purpose for the alpaca. An additional thing you can do with the alpaca is if you're playing with the development board is some of the spaces require alpacas. Some of them just have an alpaca. Some of them have both a worker and an alpaca. You don't have to complete one step at once. You can add the alpaca at one place. Matter of fact, there's no way you could add a worker and an alpaca on the same space at once. But you can add a worker, and then you can go back and add an alpaca or vice versa. So I could take it and add it to the tier to start development. Now, once a tier is finished, it's locked. You can't remove them. But if there's only one of the spaces that requires both the worker and alpaca, you can actually, if you have to sacrifice an alpaca, you can take it from there. So there's certain limitations, and there are causes you have to sacrifice, especially if you're playing with the anaconda. It's an add-on where you have to sacrifice the alpaca to be able to move the anaconda off of the action spaces that you might need.
All right. Okay, so you took yours. Dad is also going to, you know what? He's going to go all the way. He's going to go get some more stone because he needed it. All right.
Now, on these spaces, there's additional, one of the add-ons you can do, it's not on the base game, but you can upgrade the action spaces on the board. So there's a whole bunch of these tiles that they give you that you randomly select 3, and as pyramids are built, you get to choose whoever builds the pyramid where it's under gets to add it to the board in their choice of locations, and it will upgrade the actions on the board. So that's one, again, not one of the base game functions, but it's one of the add-ons.
Yeah, so that one was kind of nice. All right, so we're going to pretend that's an X. All right, so he doesn't move at all. It's a 1 or an X, so I decide he doesn't move. Me and Randy would take our turns, but then, you know what, Dad, he's decided that he's going to move back, and he can do that. So at any point, instead of moving forward, you can move back. However, caution, you cannot take an action if you're behind the architect. So there's really no point in moving behind it. So just kind of keep that in mind. So he can choose to go back and do this action here. All right. So overall, I think that covers except for the very end.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we keep playing, someone will. It was always Randy.
No, your dad did it at the end.
One time. Okay, so normally it was Randy.
I think you did once, too, because you stole the points from me that one time.
No, I did not.
Okay.
It was him. All right, so going into the center here, he is going to take his hand and he is going to decide how many cards he wants to play and what suit he's going to play.
You have to play one suit. You cannot play from multiple.
All right, so for an example, I'm going to say I'm going to spend 4 bricks, okay?
Oh, they're clay. But
Clay. All right, and then Randy has to play another suit of a different kind.
Yes, whoever has the most cards played will get a perk for the height of the pyramid. You'll get at 3 points if it's just starting out the game, and then 1 point for each additional pyramid that has been added to the central pyramid.
Now, do call out that one of the expansions has a minimum requirement of cards that if you guys don't succeed, there is a negative penalty.
Yeah, that's cooperatively between you. You have to have them.
Yes.
And the penalty, it doesn't affect the person who wins for having the most cards.
Yeah. I do want to call out, though, that, you can end up screwing yourself over. For example, if I plan on spending brick, and then you come along and that's all you have in your hand, you could end up...
Yeah, I got hosed like that in the last round because of you.
No, because of...
no, because you played the item.
Oh, I did. I played the brick because that's all I had because Dad paid dishes.
The idea is you're contributing, you're sacrificing to build the pyramid. If you sacrifice a card, you will get a point. It doesn't matter how many cards you sacrifice, unless you are the first place, you will only get 1 point. If you sacrifice nothing, you lose a victory point.
Now, the thing is though, cards aren't just for sacrificing. So, for example, we mentioned how if you have 2 of the brick or 2 of the stone, you can build an extra layer on your temple. The fish, if you have 2 of the fish, you can take the action again of where you were located.
But only action spaces, not pyramids.
Correct. And then the other one is if you have 2 llama, you get to... when you land, you get to do the action, but then you get to move 1 to 3 spaces and do another action. So that's kind of very, very useful. So the cards can sometimes be more helpful doing stuff than actually,
You want to keep a lot of cards in your hand as much as you can, because you're going to need them for multiple purposes. Like I said, they're handy for moving extra spaces if you get in a tight squeeze. They're handy for the fact that you can take extra actions with them, and for the end scoring at the end of the round. So by the time you get to the center pyramid, you want to make sure you have a good sized hand. Mm-hmm. There's also in-game scoring bonuses that one of them actually is for having 11 cards or more in your hand, which that was actually harder to get than I expected because of the fact that you're sacrificing them in the middle. And also using them as actions along the way. So you have to pretty much just go for that in one round and just know that you have to accumulate all those cards.
I do want to comment though. So at the end of the round, so you do the sacrificing of the cards, and then you trigger basically your income. Now your income is for every temple that you have actively built or have built, you get a card. And if you have put your priest on top of your temple, you get a victory point. So there is a little bit of an income in this with the cards and with a little bit of VP. I think that covers...
one other add-on is there's a set of tiles that are based upon when you get to the scoring. It's an alternate add-on that if you use it, it changes, because normally whoever gets to the center becomes the first player for the next round. These tiles give you a goal for scoring for each round that differs, and then whoever gets last on that goal becomes the first player. Yeah,
it becomes a little bit of a catch-up mechanism, which works out. And then they also give you different things to get victory points for. So first and second place get victory points for it. Last place gets first player. So in that way, it's like, everyone gets something.
Well, assuming you have a 3-player game. If you have 4, then you wouldn't, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's to be you. But overall, so I actually really enjoyed this. I know I'm typically more into the heavier, but it hit some very sweet spots for me. I really like the building aspect. I like the, you're managing your cards and you're trying to manage your resources with your clay and your workers. And I really upset I lost by 1 point to you.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I liked the game, but I don't think I'd like it if you didn't add all those add-ons.
No,
Particularly the ones that I think are key are the in-game or end-of-round goals. I think you have to have those. Otherwise, it's not going to be very good. And I also think the development board is key because otherwise, basically, it's just a race to build pyramids.
Yeah, which is part I like. No, I think actually surprisingly that's the most
the end of round scoring.
Yes,
I think those are the three most important. This one didn't add as much the tiles because there's only 3 and they don't change it that much. But it was
it's nice to have some different action tiles because that requires a little more strategy.
The Anaconda is really kind of an optional add. I mean, all of them are optional, but we didn't play with it because it was going to add a little more complexity. But basically, whoever gets to go first gets to assign this Anaconda to a location, and that location is blocked unless, as we mentioned earlier, you sacrifice an alpaca. But I did like the theme of it because you can also throw a stone at it and sacrifice a stone instead, but you lose a victory point. You can take the action, he doesn't move, but you get to take the action to the space. I thought that was pretty clever that they did that.
Yeah. So overall, talking about scoring, I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I'm at an 8.5.
Yeah. I'm not quite there. I think I'm going to a 7.5 on it, but I still think it's a good game. Now, that one other little mini expansion we didn't play with was they actually give you 2 extra dice. There's the standard die that you play with, but they have one that's a fast and one that's a slow die. And basically, this was kind of a promo that they added for the Kickstarter. So you can actually pre-order these on the miniature market as well. So you can't buy them. But basically, it lets whoever, you can either choose to play with the fast or the slow, or you can make it so that you have the choice of which die as first player you want to use for that round. So you can speed up the game or slow it down during the game. So it adds another element of strategy. If you're winning and you think you could rush the game is advantageous to you, you might want to take the fast die. Or if you've got a lot of movement and the other players don't, it's going to hose them when the architect gets ahead of them and they have to catch up. Because early in the game, the architect staying ahead wasn't a problem at all.
But towards the end, it became an issue.
We got into a real problem with those architects.
Yeah, we started putting some alpacas down.
Yeah. So I do like how flexible this game is. I think I'm glad they did make it where it was modular and add-on. I think that was very clever. When I was reading the rules, I'm like, this sounds very basic until I added on all that other stuff. And I'm glad we went ahead all in on it because I don't think we would have enjoyed it as much.
No, I agree, but it worked out for us. And like I said, it is a light to medium game, but it's still a nice one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, I really, really enjoyed this. I think, I do think a lot of the expansions are necessary to kind of get a full fleshed out game. But I think we could argue on which ones those were. I didn't really care about these, but I can see where you might like that. I didn't really see any value there. But overall, I really enjoyed it. So, well, guys,
thank
you so much for joining us. Hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.